Fourth part. How about last night, huh? That shit was tight. You said it. With reflexes like that, the girl must be hiding springs in that little body of hers. I could feel it all the way into my abs. She hears you talking like that, best watch out. Who doesn't like a compliment? I'm just saying she was good. As he spoke, Yonabaro thrust his hips. Seeing someone move like that in a jacket was pretty damn funny. An everyday gesture with enough power behind it to level a hose. Our platoon was on the northern tip of Katoishi Island, waiting to spring the ambush, jackets in sleep mode. A screen about half a meter tall stood in front of us, projecting an image of the terrain behind. It's what they called active camouflage. It was supposed to render us undetectable from an enemy looking at us head-on. Of course, we could have just used a painting. The terrain had been bombed into oblivion, so any direction you looked, all you saw was the same charred wasteland. Most of the time, the mimics lurked in caves that twisted deep under the seabed. Before a ground assault, we fired bunker buster bombs that penetrated into the ground before detonating. Eat that. Each one of those babies cost more than I'd make in my entire lifetime, but the mimics had an uncanny way of avoiding the bombs. It was enough to make you wonder if they were getting a copy of our attack plans in advance. On paper, we may have had air superiority, but we ended up in a drawn-out land war anyhow. Since our platoon was part of an ambush, we weren't packing the large bore cannons, massive weapons that reached the size of a small car fully assembled. What we did have were 20mm rifles, fuel air grenades, pile drivers, and rocket launchers loaded with 3 rounds apiece. Since it was Furl's platoon, we were all linked to him via comm. I glanced at my jacket's HUD. I glanced at my jacket's HUD. It was 28 degrees Celsius. Pressure was 1,014 millibars. The primary strike force would be on the move any minute. Last night, after that endless hour of PT, I decided to go to the party. It wasn't what I remember doing from the dream, but I didn't feel really like rereading that book. The part about helping Yonabaro up to his bunk after he stumbled back to the barracks stayed the same. Word around the platoon was that Yonabaro's girlfriend was a jacket jockey too. With the exception of special forces, men and women fought in separate platoons, so we wouldn't have run into her on the battlefield anyway. If, and I'm just talking, but if one of you got killed, I ventured, I'd feel like shit. But you still see each other anyway. Heaven ain't some Swiss bank. You can't squirrel away money in some secret account up there and expect to make withdrawal. You gotta do what you can before you go into battle. That's the first rule of soldiering. Yeah, I guess. But I'm telling you, you gotta hook yourself up with some girl. Carpe diem, brother. Carpe something. What about Mad Margarita? Y'all were talking during PT, right? You tap that, I know you would. Don't even go there. Tiny girl like her. I bet she's a Wolverine in the sack. And the smaller they are, the better they screw, you know? Show some respect. Sex ain't got nothing to do with respect. From the lowest peon to His Majesty the General, everybody wants to do a little pounding between the legs. All I'm saying is that's just how we're evolved. Just shut the F up, I said. That any way to talk to me in front of the sergeant. I'm hurt. I've got a very sensitive disposition. I'm just talking trash to keep my mind off things, same as everybody else. He's right. Someone else chipped in over the comm. Hey, don't I get a vote? It was like this was the excuse everyone in the platoon had been waiting for. Everyone started talking at once. I'm gonna have to cast my ballot for Yunobaru. I've set this thing to filter out your jokes, stop wasting your breath. Sounds like Korea's gonna have to step up his training if he doesn't want Yunobaru to take the piss out of him so easy. Sir, I think I need to reboot my jacket, sir. I don't want it crashing during the battle. Oh man, I'd kill for a cigarette. Must have left him in my other jacket. I thought you quit smoking. Hey, keep it down. I'm trying to get some sleep. And so it went. Back and forth through the comlink like it was an internet chat room. All Farrell could do was sigh and shake his jacketed head. When you're so nervous you've run out of nails to bite, thinking about something you enjoy helps take the pressure off. They taught us that in training, too. Of course. You get a bunch of animals like these together. Pretty much the only thing they think about is sex. There was only one girl I could think about. My sweet little librarian whose face I could hardly picture anymore. Who knew what she was doing? It had been half a year since she got married. She was probably knocked up by now. I enlisted right after I graduated from high school, and she broke my heart. I don't think the two things were related. Who can say? I had signed up thinking I could make some sense out of this screwed-up world by betting my life in battle, and seeing what fate dealt me. Boy, was I ever green. If I was tea-green now, I must have been lime-green back then. Turns out my life isn't even worth enough to buy one of those pricey bombs. And what cards fate has dealt me don't have any rhyme or reason. Nuts to this. If we're not gonna dig trenches, can we at least sit? Can't hide if we're digging trenches. This active camouflage ain't good for shit. Who's to say they don't see better than we do anyhow? They aren't supposed to be able to see the attack choppers either, but they knock them out of the sky like balloons in a shooting gallery. Made for a hell of a time at Okinawa. If we run into the enemy, I'll be sure to give him an eye test. I still say the trench is man's greatest invention. My kingdom for a trench. You can all dig trenches you want once we get back. My orders. Isn't that how they torture prisoners? My pension to the men who invents a way to fasten your... Shit, it started. Don't get your balls blown off, gents. Furrow shouted. The din of battle filled the air. I could feel the shudder of distant shells exploding. I turned my attention to Yunobaru. After what happened in PT, maybe my dream was just a dream. But if Yunobaru died by my side at the beginning of the battle, I'd never forgive myself. I replayed the events of my dream in my head. The javelin had come from 2 o'clock. It had flown right through the camouflage screen, leaving it in tatters. All about a minute after the battle started, give or take. I tensed my body, ready to be knocked down at any moment. My arms were shaking. An itch developed in the small of my back. A wrinkle in my inner suit pressed against my side. What are they waiting for? The first round didn't hit Yunobaru. The shot that was supposed to have killed him was headed for me instead. I didn't have time to move a millimeter. I'll never forget the sight of that enemy javelin flying straight at me. Fourth part, end.